Hey, this is Seeing Detail. I'm Chris. This is my dog, and this is MMA For You. I'm going to be doing my MMA Q and A for October 2013. Shout-outs go to Max Bigavelli, Blackett123, Burnman23, Rick 1982, Justin Brunson, C. Joe, Mark William, Winter Rapala Fishing, Jason Kang, Chris Brian, Frederick Amador, Be Good 20,000, Cyberplex, and Fight Freak. Okay, cool. So thanks for your support of the show, of these shows. Okay, let's get started. I got 3 questions here. Blackett123 asks, what do you think of the evolution of MMA? Where do you feel it is at? I still feel the fighters 10 to 15 years from now will be better than most or all of the champs today. I feel a lot of fighters today are two-dimensional fighters. Anderson Silva can strike and BJJ, but has poor wrestling or takedown defense. John Jones is great at wrestling and BJJ submission, but poor at striking. Will MMA ever have three-dimensional wrestling, BJJ, and striking fighters? Well, this is a really like a big question to ask in a sense, just because I think there's a lot of different topics to cover here. Where do I feel it's at right now? I don't think you're too far off in saying there's a lot of two-dimensional fighters. I think that comes from a lot of fighters coming from a single discipline and trying to branch out from there. You got a lot of wrestlers going into MMA. Say they get good at the ground game, but they're not that good at striking, for example. And Jordan Breen actually from the SRN mentioned this. He feels that it's easier for the most part. This is being overgeneral here, but for the most part, it's easier for a striker to pick up grappling than it is for a grappler to pick up striking. I think it's true. One of the biggest reasons is in striking, you get hit. When you get hit, however high, whatever your pedigree is, turns back to beginner a lot of times. They say, like, Eddie Alvarez said, like, yeah, everyone's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but once you get hit, the minute you get hit clean, you lose a belt. So you become a brown belt, and after, you get hit a couple times, you just become a white belt again. So, yeah, that's the thing. Where do I feel it's at? Also, I know a lot of Brazilians. There's a lot of focus on Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu combinations of what they train, but sometimes they don't have the best wrestling. So, yeah, where do I feel it's at? Yeah, not too far off. Two-dimensional. Yeah, I would argue that point. Grapplers going to striking, especially, is really tough. Like I said, striking is just, there's a different distance for every type of strike. You have to be close for uppercuts, elbows, knees. There's a distance for hooks. There's a distance for straight punches. There's distance for kicks. And then there's movement. There's a lot of different types of defense. And then you're getting hit on top of that. So yeah, that makes it tough for a lot of these grapplers, whether they be wrestlers, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, or whatnot, to truly be three-dimensional fighters. A lot of people say GSP is the prototype for the future fighter. That doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get a bunch of GSPs when you go, later on in MMA. GSP is GSP. The ability to mix up striking, wrestling, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a skill in itself. It's not something. It's not it's something that some fighters have and some fighters don't. What I think of the evolution of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or of MMA, and will MMA ever have three-dimensional fighters? Yeah, I think that we're going to get a lot of fighters that are starting young. We're starting to see that with like Rory Mack, Michael McDonald, Jordan Mean. They're starting at a really young age, and they're just getting better. They're learning all aspects of the game, and they're not stuck with being just a striker, just a grappler, or whatnot. I think it's also going to be really interesting on the women's side. Where do I think the evolution of MMA is? Because right now, I still feel that striking on the women's side is still not very strong. I definitely think that's going to get strengthened a lot moving forward. So I think female fighters will eventually become a lot more well-rounded as well. Do I think they'll get truly three-dimensional fighters? It's tough to say what you're talking about in the sense that, like, there's being good at something on an offensive level and a defensive level, for one thing. Because Jose Aldo is a good defensive wrestler. His offensive wrestler's not too bad. And same with Renan Barão. Are they truly three-dimensional? In a sense, yes. Their striking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really strong, especially like Barão. His striking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really good. I think we'll just have a lot of guys that will learn all three aspects of the game a lot better. I think we'll have three-dimensional guys, but I think... I can't see having a bunch of GSPs, for example, or anything like that. It's one of those ones that's really hard to say. I can't really say how much the evolution of MMA as far as like in cage is concerned. For all we know, everyone's doing spinning back kicks or spinning back fists and whatnot. But yeah, I think we'll see a lot more well-rounded guys get into MMA. I think also as we get more athletes getting into MMA, they'll pick it up a lot faster as well. Look at Chris Weidman, Phil Davis. Though Phil Davis doesn't have the greatest striking, Weidman picked up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really easily. His striking's getting a lot better. So once you get better athletes into MMA, a lot of athletes tend to have better learning curves as far as picking up the sport. I noticed it's the way their like minds work, I guess. But yeah, I think we'll get a lot of fighters that'll start younger. I think female fighters will become more well-rounded. And yeah, I think we'll get more three-dimensional fighters, but I think we'll still see a lot of like guys that'll prefer to stand and have good counter wrestling. Hopefully we'll get a lot more people that are better fighting off their back. Hopefully we'll get better people scrambling back to their feet when they're taken down. Striking wise, I'd like to see more defense, more head movement, and overall defense. Defense in MMA in general and striking, it's not good. And just in general, defensively, a lot of strikers just aren't very good. So yeah, hopefully we'll see more of that in the future. Training is generally going to get better as you go along because there's more knowledge. With more knowledge, knowledge is power. With more knowledge, fighters should, get better. I mean, that's just the way it works. Hopefully training methods change too, so you're not just sparring and going all out in the gym, and if fighters are training smarter, not harder. I'd also like to see that in the evolution of MMA. So I mean, to get the results in the cage, it definitely starts with what happens outside of the cage as well too. So this is a very layered question because it does actually go into training and whatnot. So yeah, I think the evolution, just because of more knowledge, will get better as you go along. It just kind of has to. More money's going into the sport, which means people will be able to get better sponsorships. To get better sponsorships, they'll be able to train full time. You'll get just other coaches that may have done MMA as well. Yada yada. Everything's, in a sense, I know it's a weird thing to talk about sponsorships and money and stuff, but it is actually connected, believe it or not, to like training and whatnot. So yeah, good question. And yes, I think they'll have three-dimensional fighters, and I think fighters will start younger. Hopefully we got more athletes in the sport. To get more athletes into the sport, needs more money into the sport. And everything kind of ties in together. Okay, next question after that. Madman5 asks, what do you think of Bellator canceling their pay-per-view? Is it the beginning of the end for them? Is it the beginning of the end for them? No, this was the best thing that can happen to them, I gotta say. I mean, like, I think Ben Folks wrote an article on MMA Junkie just of how, like, how a really bad situation turned out almost like a better situation, and how MMA fans are, a bit more positive. There's some goodwill because the card is now free and it's a stacked card. A lot of the hardcore fans were already opposed to Tito versus Rampage as the main event of their pay-per-view. They thought that was a joke, and canceling it honestly didn't make much difference from them. And for a lot of them, they actually felt that what we got now is better, because now you got like Eddie Alvarez versus Michael Chandler 2 as the main event, and quite honestly, it was the true main event anyways. So yeah, it actually turned out a lot better. Is it the beginning of the end for them? No. I know a lot of people want to see Bellator fall. It's just there's a lot of ill will towards the product with the Eddie Alvarez situation, Ben Askren situation going on right now. But what do I think? As a hardcore fan, it actually turned out better than, their pay-per-view. And it's free. They even moved like Mike Richmond, Akop Saponin to the main card. That's a great fight. I wanted that fight on the main card, and now it is. So, yeah, I'm happy. I think it's fine, Riggs versus Bronzales doesn't do much for me, but hey, I think the Fight Master tournament final should be on the main card. Makes sense, The 3 title fights look good. You got some top 10 fighters and Pat Curran, Michael Chandler, Eddie Alvarez in there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I think a good amount of MMA fans, now that it's free on Spike, are pretty much looking forward to this Bellator 106 now without having to pay for it. Okay, final question by Masonry Fire. Ask, I read that UFC pay-per-view numbers for the Dos Santos versus Velasquez 3 fight weren't very good. What's going on? This is actually a very layered question as well. What is going on? Dave Meltzer on MMA Fighting was, I believe, the first to report the He didn't give out specific numbers, but he said that they were definitely below expectation. I think what this really comes down to, for one, it has to be said, I think there's a deeper issue here of the UFC's inability to make new stars. It's kind of there because, honestly, pay-per-view numbers, some of them are good. This year, I forgot what I read, but some of them are like really bad. Rashad Evans versus Henderson, for example. Granted, there's a lot of injuries. Jose Aldo just isn't cutting it as a pay-per-view draw. As far as this event goes, what's going on? One theory, they may have pushed the Dos Santos versus Velasquez this fight way too soon. The 3 fights really aren't that they're not separated enough. So, and they saw Velasquez beat down Dos Santos last time out. Maybe people are thinking the same thing would happen. It's relatively close. I mean, it was close to Bradley Marquez, but I don't think that did anything as far as the buys go. Velasquez isn't the most charismatic guy, but he does have some penetration to the Mexican market. So, yeah, I mean, there's a couple factors here. I don't know what's really going on. I think there's an inability to really make new stars in the UFC. Otherwise, my theory is that they just put this third fight together way too soon. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my MMA Q and A for October 2013. If you guys want to submit other questions for the November 2013 Q and A, just put them on the comments. And yeah, that's pretty much it for MMA For You. Thank you guys very much.